Hello everybody, and this is a video about the immune system and the coronavirus. The intended audience are people that already know a little bit about biology. If you studied a bit about cell biology, you are in the right place. And if you are in that place where you've studied a little bit of biology, whether an access course or A levels or anything like that, then you have a better understanding of coronavirus than possibly some world leaders. The response in Belarus, for example, is that people should carry on going to football matches. So if you're tuning into this, you probably know a little bit about biology already. If you're hoping it's going to be one of them videos where someone says it's all a hoax, or it came from the Chinese government or the American government or whatever, you are watching the wrong video. That absolutely didn't happen. We're at a strange point in history here, and the thing that we can compare this to, that I can see anyway, would be this. And they would be the wrong way around, wouldn't they? Anyway, the numbers on this are 2 billion, 500 million, and 17 to 50 million, if you can read backwards. So, what do you think those numbers refer to? Anyone, hit us up in the comment section. I'll give you a shout out as they do. Does anyone know what that refers to? No. I'll add you another number. See if I can help you out. I'm going to draw it the right way around. You'll see it the wrong way around. I don't know whether with you or not, actually. There's another number, 1918, and it wasn't war. Oh, cool. It's the right way around. Thanks, Claire. Thanks for tuning in. So, 1918, Spanish flu. That's those numbers. 2 billion people was the global population. The population of the entire world at the time was 2 billion people, right? Far more people live in India and China only now than 2 billion. 500 million people got the disease, got Spanish flu, right? And 70 to 50 million people sadly died from the flu in 1915, right? So we are at a time now where people will talk about this in the history books. This will be written about in history. And I don't think we'll get to that number. It's one of the questions that we get asked is, how many people do you think will die from this? I'm not going to speculate on those numbers, but it is true that 40,000 people or thereabouts have died from this condition already. So it is quite serious, and there's 800,000 confirmed cases. Now, confirmed cases is a strange thing because, as we know in the UK, a lot of tests aren't being carried out. So we don't know what the total number of confirmed cases is, but yeah, 40,000 deaths. And if anyone watching this has been affected by that, I'm really sorry. We're in a serious situation. I'm here to talk about biology, but obviously the human aspect of it is very grave for people if people are lost before their time. So let's crack on with the biology, because that's what I'm here to do. I've drawn a diagram of this thing. Oh, just on Spanish flu, it killed people along trade routes, which is quite interesting. So the trade routes around the world, if you have a look at global pattern for Spanish flu, it killed people where those shipping lanes were and where those ports were. Now we live in a world of obviously vastly more than 2 billion people, and we have global travel, which is why it's more difficult to contain. What we have got on our side is just tons of medical advances that they wouldn't have had at the time of Spanish flu. Anyway, this is say know your enemy. This is the coronavirus. All right. And what we've got is around the outside here, you've got a phospholipid bilayer. And you'll know about a phospholipid bilayer, I'm guessing. If you were to zoom in on that, it would look like the phospholipid bilayer that you would have drawn in your cells exam. That's this section here. That's what that is. All right, so it's not a direct protein coat. It's got a phospholipid bilayer. It's got these protein spikes on the outside of it. It's going to use them to attach to your cells in your upper respiratory tract, if you get it. And it's got quite a lot of RNA, right? A lot of RNA compared to most viruses. The genome of the coronavirus family, which is a family of viruses we've known about for a while, has a lot of RNA. And it's got lots of non-structural proteins, one of which I'm going to talk about, this proofreading enzyme. All right. It has an RNA proofreading enzyme, which is recently studied and quite important. And we've known about coronavirus for a long time. We had the SARS epidemic. That was a coronavirus epidemic. And this category of virus has been known about for a while. It infects chickens, actually. It's a big problem for poultry production. They get respiratory infections and they die from it. It infects cattle, so it's a big killer of cattle, particularly in Southeast Asia. And wild animals can be used as a vector for this. And we can get past all the hysteria and stuff, but it is true that a live market, probably in Wuhan, China, was the source of this virus. So it wasn't someone chowing down on a bat or anything like that that caused this. But we've got a lot of animals in close proximity with humans, and those animals have come from all over the provinces of China. That's the most likely place where it made the transition from a wild animal, possibly a bat, to a human. And it's a droplet infection. You don't need to eat the bat to be able to get the infection. It comes from droplets. So how does this virus work? Well, this virus works by a process you'll already be familiar with if I've got my audience right and you're all biologists. This virus works, it's present in droplets, and what it does is it gets taken into your cell by no, that'd be wrong, wouldn't it? It would be endocytosis. All right. So if you know about endocytosis, what you'll know is that it's got these protein spikes here. Let's see if I can do this. It's got these protein spikes on it. It's got a membrane. The cell it's about to infect has a membrane. It attaches with these protein spikes. That's actually where the name comes from, the corona. Corona is something that you would see at the time of a solar eclipse. It's like a crown around the sun, and that's what under an electron microscope you can see these spikes. Anyway, it gets taken in, as you'll be familiar with, by incorporating its membrane into the cell membrane of the cell it's going to infect. So now that RNA, which was in the coronavirus, is now in the human, in this case, cell that it's going to infect. And the coronavirus membrane is now part of the cell membrane, all right? Which helps our immune system out, actually. We'll go into that a bit later. And then that RNA, another thing you've learned about is transcription and translation. That RNA is then transcribed, it doesn't need transcribed, it's already RNA, is then translated by ribosomes on the endoplasmic reticulum of the human that it's infected, right? So your cell's machinery, if you've got the coronavirus, are making the components of the coronavirus, right? And one of those components are these proteins, which act as a capsule around the RNA, and this proofreading enzyme. And so your cells are then replicating that virus. You're going to feel pretty sick at this point because your cells aren't, the cells of your respiratory tract aren't really doing the job they're supposed to, and then they get attacked by the immune system because cells which are virus infected get attacked by cytotoxic T cells, which are a component of the immune system, and that is what gives you your inflammation, your temperature, and things like that. It's your immune system trying to fight this virus. And that proofreading enzyme and the large genome of it makes coronaviruses reasonably unique in the world of viruses, because instead of mutating all the time, they've got this formula that works, and they don't mutate. They proofread their RNA, and therefore they can infect a large number of humans. Before we get into the immune system, just on the social distancing measures which are being put in place, they're pretty much even though they came in slow, I think we're probably at college a week longer in the UK than possibly was necessary. But those measures mean that if you're just in a household or if you live by yourself, you count as one sort of host for that virus. And if you stay in that vicinity of those people, then you won't spread it elsewhere. Obviously, you've got to look after people. Obviously, if you've got grandparents and parents that you need to look after, you need to do that. But that social distancing is going to keep the spread to a minimum. I don't know how long it will go on for. Anyway, to the immune system. So your immune system copes with a viral infection in two ways. What you can do is the cell surface markers, those glycoproteins that are normally on your cells, if your cell is virus infected, then that means that those cell surface markers change, and therefore your immune system can attack those cells. In order to get long-term immunity from this, we need to be able to make antibodies against it. So what will happen is you've got this virus, and it's got these protein spikes. And then what will happen is you'll be sick at this point. But what will be happening is something called clonal selection. So you'll be making antibodies to this, and they may not fit properly. So you'll make an antibody and it doesn't fit. You'll make another antibody and it doesn't fit. You'll make another antibody and it doesn't fit. And you'll go along expressing genes and splicing genes together to make these antibodies until you find one that's going to actually bind to the coronavirus. All right. And at that point, things get a whole lot better for you. So if you've recovered from this, things are going to get better for you because you've made antibodies for it. So what then happens is that antibody, which is attached to what's called a B cell, that B cell then signals to a T helper cell, which then coordinates the immune response and then causes a lot of this antibody to be produced. Now, if you can make a lot of this antibody, that means that any coronavirus that's getting made by your cell's machinery would have antibody attached to it. And it also clump together. So you get like clumps of these things all surrounded with antibody. That helps your immune system out. Because if something is surrounded with antibody, it means that that thing is foreign and we've recognized it. It's not part of our body. And that means that other cells called macrophages, they look a bit like this, not the scale, much bigger. Macrophage in Latin means big eater. They can just come and engulf all of that and then digest them. All right. So those macrophages will engulf those clump of viruses and they will dispose of them. So there's two ways your immune system is going to kill. Two ways your immune system is going to deal with this. It's going to deal with it by producing antibodies against it, which is going to immobilize the virus and mark it for destruction. And your cytotoxic T cells, they're going to find those virus-infected cells and they're going to kill those cells because those cells aren't any use to your body anymore. They're virus-infected cells and they need to be killed off. I don't know if anyone's got any questions. I've got one here. Influenza first emerged in 1918 and killed loads of people, like 50 million. Yeah, that's what happened. That wasn't the first ever influenza. That's just the only thing in history that's really comparable to the current crisis that we've got with coronavirus, which would have been Spanish flu. I hope everything's all right with everybody. Do follow those guidelines. Make sure you're getting outside and get your exercise done if you can, because mental health is very important, and going outside is going to help that. I hope everyone's fine and you're not missing your place of education or college too much. And If you get it once, you don't get it again. Thanks for checking in, Hannah. Yeah, that's right. So if you get a strain of coronavirus and you then recover from it, then Liam Hampton, can you just Liam has just popped in. I'll answer Hannah's question first, Liam, but just type the answer to that question below. What's the role of programmed cell death in combating viruses? Apoptosis, by the way, for those of you that don't have a biology degree like Liam does, is programmed cell death. It's where cells like digest themselves. So cells will stop working and they will sort of kill themselves, if you like, in order to because they're no use to the body anymore. So yeah, type that up, Liam Forrest. Thanks very much. Anyway, what Hannah's saying is correct. If you get a strain of coronavirus and you make antibodies, let's get back to this. If you get a strain of coronavirus and you make antibodies against it, what happens is some of those B cells are white blood cells that make antibodies. So they both express antibodies and they've got antibodies on their cell surface. But let's say this Y-shaped antibody here is the correct antibody for coronavirus. What happens is some of those cells become B memory cells. And there's quite an interesting graph for this. What happens is, this is over time. Let's say you get a viral infection and you will have no antibodies. If it's an unfamiliar novel virus like this is, you won't have any antibodies against it, right? And then you'll have to make them. And this is antibody level. So antibodies are proteins that stick to pathogens, immobilize them and stop them from making you sick and mark them for destruction. So all the time you're making these antibodies, you are sick, you have symptoms. You're not feeling well at all. You'll have the classic symptoms. If we're talking about coronavirus, you'll have the dry cough, the high temperature, all of this. Although some people are getting fewer symptoms than others, it's likely that this is going to be a problem for you. And then you get rid of it. But those antibodies don't return to zero. You still got a little few in your body. So in the form of these B memory cells. So the next time you get it, you'll just produce them dead quick. You'll have like an antibody spike. You go back down. And the second time you get it, you'll still get the virus, but you'll be asymptomatic. So you're not going to get sick the second time from it, assuming it's the same strain. The thing with flu is, and we don't know about how this one's going to pan out, but how influenza viruses are, is they come back with different strains, in which case those antibodies don't fit, and then you're going to get sick again. Why are we starting to see? So thanks for that question, Hannah. I'm still waiting for Liam Hampton to. Oh, here we go. So what he says is infected cells will present the parts of virus on the outside of the cell membrane, which are T cells, which are not. Well, yeah, I just said that. So yeah, you can read that comment there. So you're absolutely right. So infected cells, I'll get back to Charlotte. Infected cells, what they do is the glycoproteins on those cells, which you'll have studied in the first unit, they look different. So those your own body cells are then recognized as non-self by the immune system. So yeah, nice one on apoptosis. Charlotte, why are we seeing younger, healthy people dying? Well, the real answer to that is I don't know, but I think you are right in your assertion that as we get more cases of this, more people will die. And as more people younger people get infected with it, it's still quite rare that it's going to kill young people with no underlying health conditions. But it is a respiratory infection. And if you get a respiratory infection and you obviously can't breathe, that's why the need for ventilators is there, then that is going to cause you problems. But I think you're right, Charlotte. It's not like the virus is getting more hardcore and now killing young people. I just think it's a numbers game. And as we see bigger numbers of people contracting the virus, we are unfortunately and very sadly going to see younger people dying. What happens to old people's immune system when they get older? Why can't they fight it off? That's a good question, John. You just become, I suppose, immunocompromised. I think in generally with aging, your body systems become less able. So that goes for all of your systems, and the immune system wouldn't be any different. This is just me talking, so this isn't out of a textbook or anything. Thanks, Liam Hampton. That's he's going into cytokines and all sorts. So that's quite cool. It's a bit advanced for level 3, but that's excellent. Anyway, back to John's question. Another thing that happens as you age is that cell division isn't as quick. This is why you see osteoporosis, and there's some other conditions, and just general aging. What that means is that your rate of cell division, or your maximum rate of cell division, is lower. So if you need all these cells, like these B cells, to divide rapidly, which is what happens when you've got an immune response, you need them to divide rapidly. As you're older, that doesn't happen, and you just don't carry out protein synthesis of antibodies as much as you previously would. So that's why older people, and particularly people who are immunocompromised, have got a problem. And being immunocompromised is a few different where you think, like, why is someone immunocompromised if they've got, say, type 1 diabetes? Well, if you watch my previous video on diabetes, the two types of diabetes, type 2 diabetes isn't to do with the immune system, but type 1 is. It's where your immune system attacks the pancreas. So those people are classed as vulnerable. The same as anyone with Crohn's disease or any bowel disorder, where your immune system attacks your large intestine, they'll be at risk as well. Any other questions there before I sign off? I've been going 20 minutes, which is about the right length for a YouTube video. Well, that's about it. I've said this in the middle, but I just hope that everyone's fine, they're staying safe, they're looking after each other. So like I've said in all my messages, keep supporting each other, get in your group chats. If you've got any family that needs support, then do that. And I've been Liam, and you've been beautiful. Thanks for watching. Cheers, Matt.